Hello everyone, my name is Andrei, and today I would like to present you the code for a part of the code for an impossible tic-tac-toe game, as we have here, which we either lose or there is a tie. So, suppose we have our click function and our event listener. Here we have make move function, we have find winner function, and the code that represents the logic of the computer is our next move function. And now let's look at it and understand how should we make it, so that in any case either the computer wins or nobody wins. So first of all, we have an infinity loop. It takes I1 and there is no condition, and we do I++. Now, first of all, we have to check whether our board is empty or not, and if it is not empty, we should return over. And now let's start the actual conditions. So we have a variable a and we have a variable b. So as we so first of all, we want the computer to win. So that's why we should every time there is a possibility to win, the computer should take that step. So first of all, we check our diagonal from right to left. So we have a loop g from 0 to 2, and we check whether the values of the diagonal are 0, and if there are two values that are 0, like here, a is equal to 2, we should find from this loop we find which one is the empty. Is the empty one, and we get that coordinates to our to the R. So if here diagonally 2, here we have two values, and in case if there is a possibility if this is an empty place, it should throw that 0 here. So here we check whether it is empty or not, and throw. Then we assign to a 0, again 0, and now we check whether it is the same condition for the diagonal from left to right. If the number of zeros is 2, from a++, it gets to. If it is 2, we check whether which one is the empty one, which place is the empty one, and we assign and we get that coordinates. We assign to R0 j and R1 also j, and return R. And by the way, we have here a return, so if one of these conditions is true, it will just go out of this infinite loop. So we check this there, the left diagonal, the left to right diagonal. Now we check whether row. Now we check rows. If first of all we assign to our a 0, then we check every value of a certain row. For example, here the row 0. So j is 0 and e is changing, and we check whether the number of zeros there is 2 or not. So we do a++ if it is 0, and if it is 2, we find from this loop we find which one is empty. Our j is the same, by the way, and we get that coordinates for our r0 and r1, and we return our r. So it will get out of this 4 and our infinite loop. And yeah, our j is changing, so it will check for every row. Yeah. Then we assign to r a0. Then we check our columns. So the same, we have a loop with j, or we have a loop with e. But here the places, as you can notice, are here and here. The places are swapped. So this will check our columns, and if the number of zeros is 2, it will find that. It will find the value that is empty, and it will assign to r, e, and g. So our make move function will make that move in that empty place, and it will win. Then we check. So these were the cases for the winning. So now we also want to prevent x to win. And that's why we actually do the same. We implement the same code for x. So we check whether our right to left diagonal has 2 x's, and we assign to the empty place our 0. So here we so if, for example, 1 minute. Once more. Here we have x. Here we have x. So if we have 2 x's, it will prevent. It will draw our 0 here. So it will prevent us that we win in this diagonal. So then we check our diagonal from left to right, and if the number of x's there is 2, then it will draw a 0 in the empty place where there is no x. So it will also check our rows, and if there are 2 x's in the same row, it will make move in the empty place. Then we check columns, like in the same way like the 0, and so if the number of x's in the same column is 2, it will draw a 0 in the empty place. Yeah. And by the way, as the probability of winning is greater when the 0 is in the center, we check whether we check whether the center is empty or not, and if it is empty, we first of all we assign our location, the central coordinates. And in other cases, as we can see from our game, if I click here, for example, it clicks on these corners. In that way, the probability of winning is the probability for the computer to win is greater, and that's why if there is no all cases doesn't work, it should the position should be the corner position. So I will continue in the next video.